Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight on Spain the Need. I am your host, Anthony Spano. Tonight, my guest, former Ohio State Senator and candidate for Mahoning County Judge, Joe Schiavoni.
Hey, good evening, everybody. How's it going out there?
Joe, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you got a lot going on, and there's a lot in the final weeks of election.
Hey,
Joe,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I appreciate it. You've always been my friend, and I always worked with you on the Hope Foundation stuff, and I'm glad that you invited me.
I appreciate it. Well, maybe people do know you or don't know you. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of started your career, how you got into politics, kind of building up from where law school and then now up until today.
Yeah, I mean, I went away to college and law school, went to OU, and I went to Capital for law school. And my dad had a law practice, workers' comp primarily. My grandfather was also an attorney. So my plan throughout college was to go to law school, and then throughout law school, to then come home and work and do similar stuff that they did, representing injured workers in comp cases. That's what I've done since 2005. In 2009, I got appointed to the Senate. Actually, it was at the end of 2008. I got appointed to the Ohio Senate when John Bocherry left his term in the middle of his term to run for Congress. So he won that congressional spot. I got appointed. I didn't have any plans to ever get in politics in my life. It just kind of happened at that point. And then I had to run a primary and a general election in 10. I ran unopposed in 14. My term was up in 18. I ran for governor. I traveled the state for a couple of years. It wasn't successful in the primary, came back and continued building the law firm that I worked all throughout, but not full-time when I was in the Senate. Now I'm back to full-time, just, doing mostly workers' comp, personal injury and other matters for people. But, I like being a lawyer. I like helping people in politics, whatever position it might be. And so, I've been blessed up to this point to have some really good opportunities. And, I appreciate the voters of the Mahoning Valley always having faith in me up until this point.
Well, let's talk about you. What was it? Why get into public service?
For me, if you can help somebody, then do it. I was in Big Brothers and Big Sisters prior to politics, and that was where I really, working with that board and working with my little and really trying to help somebody, giving people something that they don't have that you have is key. So it's not always money that you can give. It's time, it's guidance, it's just listening to people, it's just talking to people. Being a workers' comp lawyer, you got to listen to people that have serious problems and then make a decision of how you can help them immediately and then do it. So when I had the opportunity to be a state senator and get appointed that first go around, I said, look, if it's a good way that I can help people, I talked to Harry Michelle, I talked to some former state senators. They said, Joe, you'd be good at this job. You're an honest person. You listen, you treat people properly. And so it just kind of happened. I got lucky with that appointment. Then I had to work really, really hard to win that primary and then win a general election when people didn't really know who know me in the political circles. And so, but at the end of the day, it's about helping people whoever you can. And I know that's something that you believe in. And I think a lot of people in our valley do. And I think that's why I love the Mahoning Valley, because people try to help one another and pick people up when they're down.
Well, and let's talk about you. You served about 10 years, give or take, in the Ohio Senate. What was it like to serve in that capacity in Columbus? Was it eye-opening?
It was. And at first, it was a little bit overwhelming. I mean, I had so many appointments in Columbus, so many appointments here. They were all introductory meetings. So not only did I have to have that introductory meeting with that person that was sitting across the table from me, but then I had to gain their trust, and then I had to explain to them how I was going to help them with their particular issue. So it was very, very, it was very fast. Fortunately, at that point, Margaret and I were just dating. We weren't married. We didn't have any kids yet. And I had a lot of time to really dedicate to it and never missed a meeting here, never missed a meeting there, went above and beyond to make sure that people knew that they had the ability to call me for things that I could do to help them. And so I think that went a long way in that first election because people saw that I wasn't playing around. I was really working. And I always do that no matter what I do. It's 100%. If you're going to do something, do it. Now it's a little different because I have two kids that are my number one priority, my family, and then working the schedule on a daily basis. Like my hands still smell like pumpkins. We were carving pumpkins at a family party outside by a fire. I ran up to the office to do this, and then they'll probably be home by the time I get done. But it's like you got to pace yourself and you got to work through it. But to answer your question, at the end of the day, it was eye-opening. It was difficult, but it was very, very rewarding, and that's why I continued to do it.
Well, and let's take the next step is with everything going on, then you decide to run for governor. What made that decision, and what kind of experience did you get running for governor, traveling all over the state?
Well, I was a minority leader in the Ohio Senate, and so I had a lot of good contacts throughout the state. People were telling me, Joe, we need somebody in the Democratic Party that is young. We need somebody that can get out there and fight for people. You have a track record of doing that for 10 years. Let's do it. And so I just started working from community to community every single day and every single night. I mean, I put 100 and some thousand miles on a car in 2 years, just working through communities. And it was really rewarding. I mean, I didn't win, but I met so many great people out there, and the people that were paying attention, they knew that I was there for them. And I came up with a lot of good plans to help keep young people in Ohio. I came up with plans to deal with blight, to deal with crime, to deal with drugs, to deal with education. Like, I put out a full plan so that people can see that, because I knew that's what they wanted. Unfortunately, I didn't have the resources to get those plans in front of the casual voter through television. And that, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not saying, that was the only reason, but that was one of the main reasons why I couldn't get my message all the way across. The people that were paying attention, I was winning, but I just couldn't get that mainstream Democratic voter in, a different city that never had any exposure to me. So, I mean, we won the Mahoning Valley in the primary, but I didn't win any other counties. And so it is what it is.
Yeah, hey, one big shot, you can always say you did it, and it was an experience.
And we fought till the end, and we gave people something to believe in. And that, to me, was more important than anything. I still get calls and they say, Joe, you were the only politician that I believe in, that I trust, that I understood when you were speaking. Your plans made sense. We knew your heart was in the right place, and you had the plans to back it up. And so it doesn't matter if you're running for governor, state senator, or for judge. It's about trust. It's about relationships. It's about people, when they go to that poll, they look and they say, I believe that guy. I trust that guy. I know that he's going to do what he says, and I know that he has our backs. And for me, that's how I run campaigns, no matter what it's for.
Well, and let's talk about, you've been all over the state. You've been mostly, probably, you've pretty much lived here now in the Mahoning Valley for quite a while. What experience, if any, have you? How have you volunteered in the community? Can you give some examples of that?
Here in the Mahoning Valley?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I try to do whatever I can. Still working with big brothers and big sisters a lot. I helped the Boys and Girls Club through some things. I've worked with the Italian American Education Foundation, trying to raise money for that. I'm currently doing work with the Robinson Schuba project to try to get that statue in downtown Youngstown of Jackie Robinson shaking hands with Shotgun Schuba. There's things that, when you see things that warm your heart and you could be helpful, you do it. And all of those projects were projects off the top of my head that, I really love. Now, I do a lot of stuff with my kids in their sports teams as well, and their school projects. And, I try to volunteer any way that I can to help. I'm like an assistant coach to a lot of things, not a head coach. I just like to be the one that kind of helps when I can be helpful, but not have to run the show in that capacity. But
the assistant coach the assistant coach, no matter what sport you're on, or you're in charge of the sideline?
Correct. You're in charge of the kids when they come out, and they're like either sad, overly happy, overly sad, confused, don't want to play anymore. So you just try to get people to have fun, because sports are about having fun. And if it's not fun, then it's not worth doing. So I try to make it fun and try to work through it, especially when you're at this, when you're 6, 7, 8 years old. Now, when you get older, it's not all about fun, but you got to decide, once it gets competitive, if you want to keep doing that.
Well, and let's talk about your family. So if people maybe not know, talk about a little bit about your family, who you're married to, how old are your kids, and just kind of a little bit about your family, so people understand when we talk about different things, they'll know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I have been together since, right when we started this Senate stuff is when, we got engaged and got married. She was in school at the time. She's a nurse anesthetist, so she works part-time at Southwoods and part-time at the Cleveland Clinic. And so we're balancing that. She went to Mooney. I went to Boardman. My parents went to Mooney, so I'm surrounded by the Mooney family, but I'm not officially in the Mooney family. You got me, Tony. So I
don't play that too loud.
Yeah, we got 2 kids. Louis in 2nd grade, Dom's in kindergarten. They go to West Boulevard in Boardman, and we have a lot of fun together and just hang out. I mean, with coronavirus, it's been a difficult time, but it's also been one to where we've had a lot of fun together and spent a lot of time together. But yeah, we kind of want that to be done like everybody else, so that we can get back to normal life. But we've done a lot of fishing and a lot of anything outside for the last however long. Now it looks like it's about over. So we had that last stretch of nice weather, and now we're kind of just gonna have to hunker back down. But that's our crew, and we have a lot of fun together.
Well, let me ask you this, and I just want your opinion before we kind of get into the court race, into the judge race. What is your thoughts on the whole state corrupt charges against a former speaker? It was Speaker of the House, correct?
Right.
Well, I'm not going to name names, but the alleged of what are your reactions when you hear that?
Yeah, and I, obviously I can't say who's right and who's wrong. It's not
right.
They haven't figured it out yet. That's for other people to figure out. But the allegations are startling, to say the least, to say that a Speaker of a House basically got bribed by First Energy to pass a bill, and bribed for a lot of money. And then he used that money to give to different candidates, and they had to vote the same way he had to vote. And that was for that bill. So if that's true, which, the facts look like there's something there, that's horrible. And the public should be outraged. Not only was it for a specific company, but at the end of the day, the people were paying for it because you get a rider on your electric bill. And so they should be outraged, not only because there's bribery dealing with an energy company, but then at the end of the day, you got to pay. And so that bill should be repealed, in my opinion. But I'm not down there anymore. And but yeah, it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I just want to kind of get some insight, because I hear the same thing, but I hear it from both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
That it's one thing to do something, but that's a lot of money when now the public is paying the company, and yeah, it's a mess. So let's talk about Mahoning County Judge number 3, which would cover a variety of areas. So talk a little about the position itself, what areas it covers, and who would be voting in this election. Because I know there was a lot of confusion on who can vote in your county or your court seat.
Okay, so let's start with the county court itself. The county court deals with misdemeanors, so punishable up to 6 months in jail, criminal misdemeanors, and civil cases under 15,000. Okay, so that's the court. That's what you do. Those are the cases you deal with. So you deal with drug cases, you deal with domestic cases, you deal with OVIs, you deal with traffic tickets, you deal with assaults, you deal with thefts. In the misdemeanor, if it's a felony, you instantly bind it over to common pleas court, and so it goes to common pleas court in downtown Youngstown. Now, here's where it gets confusing. The county courts only serve part of Mahoning County, so it's called Mahoning County Court. So everybody in Mahoning County thinks they would vote, and they should think that you should be able to vote if it's called Mahoning County Court. But if you have a municipal court from where you live, then the municipal court does the work that I just explained that the county court does. So if you live in Struthers, you go to Struthers Municipal Court. If you live in Youngstown, you go to Youngstown Municipal Court. If you go to Camel, you go to Camel Municipal Court. And then Poland goes to Struthers. So does New Middletown. So does some other areas on the eastern portion of our county. The people that vote for county court, Boardman, Austintown, Canfield, West, and South. So you think about that. If you live in a city, a municipality, you have a municipal court. If you live in a township, then you go to county court for the most part. And so that's kind of how you can think about it. I say to people, look, if you get a speeding ticket in front of your house, where do you go to court? If they say Youngstown Muni Court, then you wouldn't vote for me. If they say Boardman, Canfield, Austintown, or Sebring, then you would.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I know there's been a lot of confusion on that of where people live, depending on the ballots. Well, and I'll pretty much ask this straight up. And why are you running for this position?
I was looking for the actual list of the communities. I had it here yesterday, but yeah, for me, it's about service and it's about fighting for people and providing a court that is unbiased and fair. So you got to think about all the moving parts. You want to protect victims. You want to make sure that the accused has a fair shot. And then once you figure out what you're doing with the situation, hopefully you can get that person into some sort of treatment. If it's drugs, you can get them into some sort of diversion so that you can get them back on their feet. You want to reconnect them with their family. But at the end of the day, if you have to punish them because they're a repeat offender, then you punish them and you put them in jail. So that's part of it. It's a carrot and stick approach. It's about treating people fairly, looking at every individual case, unbiased, putting yourself aside, following the law as written. And so I've written laws as a legislator. I practice law as a lawyer. And I believe that I would be somebody that would be qualified to then follow that law and get people through the court system in a fair way. I just think it's a good opportunity for me to be able to help and also to stay local, honestly, so that I don't have to be in Columbus or in Washington. I could be with my family and I could help people here.
Well, and right now we're in the midst of probably one of the worst pandemics in 100 years. How do you handle that, dealing with the courts and dealing with what we're going through right now?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I mean, I've been to courts throughout coronavirus, though, and they're doing a good job. They space people, got to wear a mask, got hand sanitizing stations everywhere. I mean, you got to make sure that you're safe and you don't pack people in for a long period of time. You got to make sure that you move people through and only have certain numbers in there at a time. Makes it a little more difficult, but it's definitely doable. And they're doing it. Where you can do phone, where you could do Zoom, where you could use technology, you absolutely should. I mean, in workers' comp, we're still doing phone hearings and the court's still doing a lot of phone stuff as well. So I don't mind that to keep people safe any way that you can. But you want to make sure that when you're using technology that you're not sacrificing that person's right to have their day in court, right? And so if you're just going to do it on the phone real quick and you're not really paying attention to what's going on, I don't think that's really fair. So you got to make sure that you have that fairness component and balance it with the safety and get just results for people.
Well, and I know we there, as cases go up, a lot of people, I know Mahoning County's in the red. I know that the next is purple, which is a complete shutdown of the county.
Right.
And what would that say? What would you say to people that are watching about, hey, we need to cut it down, we need to wear a mask? What are your thoughts on that type of thing?
I mean, my thoughts are that I try to practice what I preach. I mean, you got to live your life, but you got to be safe. So wear your mask, wash your hands, stay away from people as most you can. But at the end of the day, you also have to live your life. And I understand that people want to do that. So I don't have a problem with people going out and getting something to eat, or, my kids play youth sports and we still try to do things together, but you try to separate as best you can while you're doing them and not pack into small places without masks and be there for hours and hours and hours. You just got to mitigate the risk, and the mask and good social distancing practices. That's what science says to do. And so until we have the actual cure to it, or until we have, the ways that we can deal with this with medicine, that's the best we got.
Well, and I know that so if many people may not know, the court that you're running for is in Sebring, Ohio.
Correct.
And I know you were looking for it. Do you want to take an extra second to look for that list of areas, or?
I had it right here, but basically I would be the judge in Sebring for one day, and then Austintown for one day, because Austintown has the highest traffic. At least that's what they're doing now in the county courts. So Judge Hunter is in Austintown, Judge Hauser is in Boardman, Judge Johnson is in Canfield, and Judge Morgan is in Sebring. But it doesn't mean that that's the only place you go in the county courts. You're always there on a steady basis, but then you help out the other judges, mostly Boardman and Austintown, because that's where most of the stores are, that's where most of the traffic is, that's where most of the stuff happens. But if you think about it, you got Boardman votes, Canfield votes, Austintown votes, and all the outlying areas to the west. So you have Berlin, Milton, you go to Greene, Goshen, Sebring, Beaver. You have all these areas out there that also vote. But so west votes for this seat, east probably not, because you're served by the muni courts with Youngstown, Camel, and Struthers.
Yeah, because they all have city courts, municipal courts, as you
Correct.
mentioned.
And Poland goes to Struthers. So does New Springfield. So does Coatesville. Lowville has a mayor's court. So they kind of have their own stuff over there for misdemeanors.
Well, and okay, that makes sense. So why should people vote for you? And I'm just being blunt because I think that's a good enough question to ask.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, I promise people that they're going to get somebody that's honest, that's going to work incredibly hard for them, and that's going to be fair, and always treat people fairly and always be truthful. I've always tried to do that, and I always will. And so I'm going to put together, once I start in this court, if I'm successful, I'm going to run an efficient court that gives people a fair shot. And we're going to utilize technology. We're going to make sure that we are working through each individual case, working with the prosecutors, working with law enforcement, making sure people are treated properly. And at the end of the day, we're going to make sure that we're going to work through case by case and get the job done.
Okay. I got some rapid questions for you.
Okay.
Best accomplishment that you've had in your career? Could be anything.
I would say that when they had me spearhead Senate Bill 5 in Columbus, it was the bill to take away collective bargaining rights from public employees. That was something that I took a lot of pride in, and I traveled the state. I traveled the country. I went out and spoke at a lot of conventions out across the country about that bill. And it was great to see that, if you remember, that bill got voted on by the Senate and the House, but then we have the ability to repeal a bill with voter citizens initiative. And that's what happened. So I kind of led that citizens initiative. And that was probably my biggest, at least, accomplishment in the Senate.
Any life accomplishment?
I mean, I got
other than marrying your best friend, because I know that's usually the number one of any gentleman.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to go that far about the best friend thing, but I mean, I was going to say, my family has to be. Your family has to be, because your family's the most important thing you have. I mean, my parents too are tremendous, and I just keep building that relationship with my wife, my family, my brothers, their families, and just try to bring everybody together. I mean, that's what it's all about.
What's your best memory?
I think about when I grew up, and I went to Boardman, but we lived in Youngstown first, like right behind Handles, and
Midlothian, off Midlothian, correct. Sorry, I was on
And
the other side of town.
no, and I really like the memories that I had in that neighborhood were great. Like we used to have this wiffle ball league down there. There's one of the neighbors would like keep our stats, and like we'd all ride our bikes over there after school. And it was almost like a movie, you know. Then we'd all ride to Handles, we'd all get ice cream, we'd all go to Brown's Drugs, we'd all get baseball cards. Like it was just a really cool place to grow up. And those memories for me were pretty awesome growing up. I mean, having our first kid was probably the most like vivid memory that you have, because it's just like so crazy and you just want everything to go right. So that's also just a memory that is burned in my brain. But growing up, those memories, just riding around the neighborhood and hanging out with those people that we lived around was pretty awesome.
I talk about accomplishment, memory, experience.
I think about the experience I had when I first started as a workers' comp lawyer. I mean, when you graduate law school, you graduate college and you're 22, you graduate law school and you're 25, and you're a 25-year-old kid really, and you're going and representing a lot of these older guys, men and women, but a lot of these rough guys that have worked all their life, and they see you and they're like, who's this kid? Where's your dad? Like, I need an experienced lawyer. So like those first couple of hearings, to get that person across the table to trust me and believe that, number one, that I'm fighting for them, but I got it and I can handle it. Those experiences to me were really, really important, because I think about all those first clients that I had, whether you won or you lost, I was always prepared and I always tried hard. And I still try to do that every day, because, I'm 41 now, but you're still considered a younger attorney, a younger legislator, politician, whatever it is. But, it's about creating that relationship of trust with people. And those are the experiences to me, were those first meetings with those first injured workers, that I really cherish.
It's funny. And I know your dad, and it's funny because we don't. I mean, I'm 29, you're 29. I don't. It's not just a number.
Right.
It's just a number. We're still our young basketball selves. That's all that matters.
You still try to play, but I was never good anyway. But I still do like to play.
I still remember you blocking Congressman Tim Ryan on a shot. I think there's a picture on rolling around the internet somehow.
I think you got that mixed up.
No, I think that I swear I saw a picture like that, but either
there
way.
was also a picture from one of your games, I hope, that was in the sports section in the Vindy. There was a guy that played, he was like, he wasn't there for very long. He worked for KVN or something, and he was a tremendous basketball player. But he was like the same size as me, so we matched up on the first time up and down the court. I was just supposed to guard him. He was way younger. He was way better. And on the first, he crossed me over, and I just like flew to the one side, and then he just raised up, and there was a picture in the Vindicator. My hand was like right here, and he was like up here, and I was like down on one knee. So I got a lot of flack for that. But
I know who that is. I can't. Oh, well, it was one of the sports. Sports guys.
Yeah.
I can't. I visualize him. I just don't. Yeah, but you know how that
works. He wasn't there for very long.
No, I can't remember. Yeah,
wherever he is, that really hurt me.
You hurt his reputation on the basketball court. That's why he wants to go back to the Sandlot.
Yeah.
That's why he wants to bring those stats back up. That's why I mentioned it.
That's right.
Well, Joe, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Do you have any thoughts on the presidential election coming up here in another week at all?
I mean, as a candidate for judge, you don't have a D or an R by your name. People kind of know where I've been and what I've done. I just hope that regardless of the outcome, that we have a good transition and that we kind of start working together a little more, regardless of who you vote for or what political affiliation you are. I mean, we're tearing each other apart every day, and it's pretty ugly out there. And so I just think that regardless of the outcome, we're going to have to pull together, and we're going to have to start tolerating one another and working together and caring about one another in a much better way, in a much larger way than we're doing today. And we got to teach our kids to do better. And so, it's a tough one. This is tough out there, from the presidential race to the congressionals to the U.S. Senate races, all the way down to the legislative races. But I can't really comment on that stuff right now because the judicial ethics law says that you can't be political when you're running for judge. But I just want people to treat one another better.
Hey, that's good enough for me. It's just a thought.
Yeah. Yep. I got you. I appreciate the question.
Not a problem. Joe, it's always a pleasure. I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You're always welcome on my show.
Thanks, man. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Check out Anthony V. Spano and any additional podcast interviews, and we'll enjoy. Have a good night.